Okay, so we had the Bureau of Land Management. I'm Joseph Linnaeus.
I'm
Hi,
I'm Addison Cosell.
I'm Abby McGlynn.
I'm Griffin Lepore.
Okay, so the Bureau of Land Management was founded in 1942. However, the agency's beginnings date all the way back to the late 1700s. At that time, the United States was a newly developing country, and that continued to procure land and expand its borders, and subsequently, the land the government had to manage. Land was purchased and given to congressmen and the people in an effort to promote westernization and the development of various centers for higher education. However, once the US government dealt with the trying ordeal of two world wars and an economic depression, the decision was made to implement more agencies so they could best profit from the land preceding this economic turmoil. When a conflict arose between Congress and the agencies established, it was time the General Land Office and the Grazing Service were merged, and thus there was the Bureau of Land Management, aka BLM.
Okay, so the mission of the BLM, or the Bureau of Land Management, is to protect, maintain, and sustain the health and diversity of public lands. They impose this mission on an area of 245 million acres. Over these 245 million acres, part of their mission is to use the lands for multiple uses, not just for one, aka, for example, a lake might be used for fishing and as a drinking water supply, or land might just be used for livestock grazing and timber production. This multiple land use creates great land productivity that doesn't waste lands.
The values and behavior of the Bureau of Land Management. They value the preservation of public lands for the use and enjoyment of present and future generation. But in the early days of land preservation, ranchers did not really agree with the laws put in place to preserve land, starting with the Taylor Grazing Act of 1934. The Taylor Grazing Act was put in place to stop the overgrazing of these arid parts of the Western land. Preservation of Western land was a big part of President Roosevelt's New Deal administration due to the drought and Dust Bowl of the late 20s and early 30s. Today, the Bureau of Land Management really focuses on energy development, livestock grazing, recreation, and timber harvesting, while also ensuring natural, cultural, and historic resources to be maintained for present and future use.
In regards to important people, Harry S. Truman, the 33rd President of the United States, went against the Interior Department's recommendation and formed the Bureau of Land Management. The two organizations merged to form the BLM, were the U.S. Grazing Service and the GLO, which were formed respectively by Franklin Delano Roosevelt and James Madison. Currently, the Director of Policy and Programs for the Bureau of Land Management is William Perry Penley, while Michael Ned is the Director of Operations. Moreover, there are a multitude of important directors placed in charge of varying states and regions, such as the eastern states or single states such as Montana and Idaho, etc.
Okay, so the Bureau of Land Management does many things for the United States' land, some which people like and some which people hate. A few of their past actions which have received scrutiny, though, are the forced management on the ONC lands, which is when the ONC lands were given to railroad and road companies who then just sold the land to private timber interests because it was more profitable than selling it to like regular settlers. Another one would be the management of wild feral horses in burrows. This was controversial because BOM started to act one way towards protecting the horses, then their population started to thrive, and then they started to have adoption programs which no longer protected wild horses. They also have had controversial actions like in the mining industry where they have sold land to mineral and mining companies for very cheap compared to the way it should have been sold for. And then the final controversial part of, well, not final, but like one I'm going to list would be when they like sell plots of lands. It's called plain check. They nickname it plain checkers in the chapter, but they call it selling plots of lands to railroads and industries in a checkerboard pattern where land only connects at the corners. And this can be really annoying because like private land will every other like acre of land will be like private, or it's like 20 acres will be private and then like not private, private, not private. But yeah.
Some interesting facts about BLM is that it was established within the Department of Interior in 1946, It oversees 245 million surface acres of public lands for American people. Alaska has the most BLM managed land, while Florida has the least. And there are 24 states that have no BLM managed land. The article that we had talked about how the Bureau of Land Management is holding a series of virtual meetings to discuss a controversial oil and gas drilling plan in the greater Chaco region. The Chaco region is extremely important land to the Pueblo and Navajo groups of New Mexico. The meetings were held in order to give the public a voice on an amendment that discusses the region's land use plan as well as updating BLM regulations. Over the last few years, other organizations have successfully come forward to speak out against the BLM's approval of fracking and drilling in this area and the effects that it has on human life as well as the environment. Many believed that the meetings should be postponed due to effects and implications of COVID, but it was later decided they would be extended through September 25th. Other obstacles appeared with the meetings as well, given that the Navajo people were excluded from the public hearings because of the lack of internet access, as well as not being able to understand the English that was being used. Federal agencies are required by law to engage with the public about these concepts, and if the public aren't able to fully participate, then the agencies are ignoring that obligation. One of the most effective areas of the drilling and fracking is Chaco Canyon. The land is an important part of identity for the residents, so it must be protected. And lastly, there have been connections made between air pollution and increased COVID cases, which is very worrisome for the Navajo community, which further implicates why they want to prevent the fracking and drilling.
That is the Bureau of Land Management.
Yay.
Yay!
We did it.